Although most people are tired of turkey, chicken, and ham, there is one cut of pork that's often forgotten: the porkloin. An inexpensive cut of meat. If prepared correctly, it's both delicious and juicy. First, he begins by patting the loin dry. Odd songs aside, he measures his loin. At roughly 20 inches long, it's too much for dinner. Thus, he decides to cut the loin in half. This should feed 5 people rather generously, unless your name rhymes with Schmuckish Monster. The end is then cut so that it is a perfectly shaped piece of sent loin. It's not ideal to be missing part of the fat cap, but it won't be a problem. Next, he needs butcher's twine, because he is going to tie the loin up like a villain. Although not necessary, tying the loin creates a uniform shape. This allows the loin to cook evenly and looks better once served. He runs the twine through a loop and tightens before running it below the loin. Then, on the top side, he runs it underneath the twine and pulls it over and down the center. The process is repeated with about an inch spacing until the loin is tied. However, he ran out of twine, so he tied another piece of twine and continued. This loin is ready. He preheats the oven to 250 degrees American, then it's time for the super simple seasoning. In a bowl, he grinds black pepper of the telecherry variety, adds kosher salt until it looks similar to this. Then his super simple secret ingredient: cocoa powder. Yes, cocoa powder. He mixes with using the Jason method as best he can. Then he returns to his loin.
Hey.
And no,
Up here.
not those loins. He removes the remaining twine with his medieval tool, then it's time to coat the pork backstrap in all seasoning. All sides of the loin are covered, including the end caps. Eventually it looks like a Tootsie Roll. He combines 2 sheets of foil of the aluminium to create a single large sheet. This is used to cover a stained baking sheet, and using a stainless steel cooking rack or cookie cooling rack, he places it inside. Then, giving his Tootsie Roll one last roll on the seasoning, places it directly in the center of the tray. The time to bake has arrived. The meat is taken to the hot box and placed upon the middle rack. Then he sets 2 timers, one for 2 hours and one for a single hour, the latter signaling the beginning of frequent checks. In the meantime, he cleans, because ants. After the initial hour has concluded, he checks the loin to ensure it hasn't turned to a log of charcoal. He sets the timer for 20 minutes for his next checkpoint. After the first 20 minutes, he will check the internal temperature every 10 to 20 minutes using an instant read thermometer. Using the temperature, he can determine the doneness level of the pork. Since his dinner guests will eat nothing less than well done, he is aiming for 140 degrees American. Once it reaches 137, he decides to pull it, as residual heat will continue to increase the loin's internal temperature. Next, he could use a cast iron skillet or a blowtorch, but he will be using his oven. He sets the temperature as high as it goes, 500 degrees, and once the temperature is achieved, the loin log goes back into the oven for 10 to 15 minutes, depending on the level of darkness you want to achieve. In the meantime, he ponders life and had to explain the lack of Brussels sprouts. After 12 minutes, the loin is sizzling like a cat in heat. It's removed and thrown and placed under the same foil of the aluminium as before. To prevent the loin jus sandwich, he must let it cool and allow the muscle fibers to relax. It's wrapped like a burrito and allowed to rest from anywhere between 15 to 35 minutes. Yes, up to 35 minutes. Let the timer begin. Although a bit premature, he needs to get on the road. So after 20 minutes, he opens up his loin log to reveal a beautifully round, brown pork loin. He prepares it by snipping off the butcher's twine with scissors and removes it. Although confident, he decides to cut a few slices to ensure it's cooked. Otherwise, it would delay dinner while everyone cooks their juicy pork loin into a well-done piece of rubber. Although he prefers it a bit more medium, this will satisfy both his well-done guests as well as those other meat eaters that prefer it a bit more juicy. And so, if you need a perfectly priced alternative to turkey, ham, and chicken that's easy to cook and will help you kick diabetes in the face, pork loin is a perfect choice.
That's juicy.
Much thanks to my supporters on Patreon who help make this channel possible. And if you want amazing side dishes to pair with your pork loin, make sure to watch these other videos. Until next time, A to L.